I call this meeting of the Sebastian Budget Review Advisory Committee to order. Let's all stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's have a roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Middleton? Here. Ms. Reed? Here. Mr. McGinn? Here. Ms. Serta? Present. Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Napier?
Present.
Mr. Newhart?
Here.
Thank you.
Now that we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And I need
We're
for the
one
record.
short, right?
Well, Bruce Hoffman did give us notice that he would not be at the meeting.
Okay.
So he would be excused. And our
Well, we're good. We got a full.
Our other alternate.
So we don't have anybody. Bruce, I assume he has an excused absence, right?
Yes. I'm trying to think of the other member here. Let's see.
Now, the next thing here is a vote to excused or unexcused absent members. Is that for this meeting or is that for?
Yes.
Okay. So we've only got one. Bruce is not here and he's got an excused absence.
That's correct. We've got an alternate vacancy. That's what was throwing me off. I was thinking 9 altogether, but.
So we've got an alternate that's not here as
of,
well? Is that excused or unexcused?
Well, he's not appointed, so it's a moot point. So we would just have Bruce as being an excused absence.
Bruce is excused and the alternate is unexcused then, right? Because they didn't call.
Well, the other alternate has not been appointed.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought. We were one short.
Clear, yes.
I thought we were one short. Okay. So Bruce Hoffman is excused, and the rest of us are here. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the meeting of February the 13th. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
I will accept a motion.
So moved.
To approve.
A second.
Motion made by Amber, second by Grace. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Review of the first quarter financial report. Mr. Ken, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. The first quarter report, finally got that put together after a crunch of, just a time crunch on getting it for the last meeting, but the first quarter looks pretty good. I'll just kind of go through. We've got of course, the resolution to go to the city council. It'll actually be at next week's council meeting. We've reported on all the budget changes. Most of these had to do with projects at the end of last year that were unexpended, so we brought those balances over for those projects. And we had some purchase orders that were issued before year end, so we are re-budgeting those to have them fall into this fiscal year. Several adjustments were made for grant programs to where they either adjusted the amount or a new grant was awarded. On the fund summaries, I have general fund that reported very good as far as all the department expenditures. The non-departmental was affected by the payment at the beginning of the year of our insurance premiums, and we also make the CRA contribution out of that department. So that was over the 25% mark on the budget. City clerk's department was spent greater than the 25% of their budget because of the election and the cost paid for that in the first quarter. I gave you a report on the American Rescue Plan Act Fund to show that those commitments that were made for spending those funds, and also a forecast of the general fund balance showing the amount of transfers we made there again for the unfinished projects. We did have an adjustment to pay for the cost of taking out the fuel tanks that we found on the Harbor Lights property. You can see that we have not used during the first quarter any of the R&R account funds. On the following page, I show the stormwater fund with a expectation that their ending fund balance for this year will be just slightly higher than we had projected. The golf course looks like they would be in better shape than they started the year at and what we projected by the end of this fiscal year. The airport fund is slightly less than we had projected for the year. I recall, well, I think it's because that we had not anticipated the fund balance for the same amount as it's shown in the report here. So the building fund should be pretty much as projected. The permitting and revenues from those sources are coming in fairly well, so we don't anticipate a problem there. As usual, I'm not going through all the detailed sheets on each fund. I'd be glad to respond to any questions on that. There is a report on all the capital projects. We do have a number of those that are still in process. Keeps us very busy. The quarterly investment report, I show you the amounts that are on deposit with the Seacoast National Bank, the State Board of Administration, and the Florida Trust account. You've probably seen that I think I reported last quarter that we paid out all our debt due to outside parties. Any of the bond issues or notes payable that we had have been totally liquidated now. And we are on schedule to pay the interfund loans. The rest of the report are the goals and accomplishments of the departments. And other than that, I'd be glad to respond to any questions. Yes, sir?
Ken, in light of the news of the last few days, I was looking at our investments, and I thought I was pretty knowledgeable about this, but we have like close to $20 million in the Seacoast National Bank. Mm-hmm. How is that money insured since it's such a large amount in a bank?
With the banks are covered.
They're QPDs.
Yeah.
They're qualified
public depositories.
They're qualified public depositories, and the state backs up. That state collateralizes them as long as the governmental unit has their funds in that bank. Okay, so they're totally collateralized.
So the Florida Bank, but I read about that. So Florida backs up the ones that aren't backed up by federal deposit. Okay.
Yes, we file a report with them every year. Typically in November, we file a report with the state saying this is where we've got our money, and the state issues those banks that are qualified to hold your money in. So that's all got to match up.
So I guess the only question is, how good is the state?
It's the best in the country. Okay. Don't get any better than that.
Thank you.
And the state of Florida Department of Banking and Finance has always been, the regulators have always been very good. They've always been on top of it. If public funds are in QPDs, I'm not concerned about the liquidity of the funds. They're as safe as they can be.
I would add, though, about 16 years ago, our State Board of Administration account, they got in trouble. And they actually froze some of the city's accounts. We ended up recovering that money over time. But as a result of that, they do have more oversight now than they did back in that day. So I feel comfortable with that. The Florida Trust account is like $500-something thousand.
Right.
That I don't believe would be covered by more than $250,000 under the FDIC rules.
I don't think any of those state funds have the FDIC backup. They're collateralized by the state.
No, yeah, I think you're right that they do
Yeah.
not, right.
I don't think they have FDIC protection unless you got your money actually in a Federal Reserve Bank.
Yeah, and of course the investments we have there are government securities. So there's some comfort in that. It's not like we're investing in other money type instruments.
Public funds are, in my opinion, public funds are very safe in the state of Florida, as long as they have them in a QPD. And I don't know of very many that you'd get a nasty comment in your audit if you had your funds outside of QPD, I'm sure, because they would be totally unsecured, except for the $250,000, if you had them in a Federal Reserve Bank.
I'd only add that our police pension funds, I was in communication this morning with our investment managers. There's about $900,000 of their $14 million account that's in a real estate holding company, and they were looking into it for me as far as any exposure there. But it shouldn't be significant, even if there should be some issue there. The police pension fund, yes.
The police pension fund.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions I can respond to? That would be it for me. Thank you.
Oh, okay. There we go. You can probably hear me anyway. Start with you, Bill. You got any questions or comments to Ken or any?
No, I'm all set.
Put the green light on. Push the button. There you go.
I did push a button. No, I'm all set.
Okay. Dave?
I'm good.
Grace?
I thought everything looked really good on it. I'm just hoping it continues right on through the year. Other than that, I'm good with it. Terry?
Any more questions, concerns?
I have one additional. The debt service under the golf course shows that even though we had debt service in the previous years, there's none listed either in the budget or the first quarter actual. Does that mean there isn't any? That's under the golf course fund.
It probably is just a matter of the account not being, it's rolling up into other accounts.
Okay.
We make the transfer to the building fund. We handle it as an interfund transfer as opposed to just debiting principal and interest payments on it. So it would roll up into
But it pays that pursuant to the budget, right, Ken?
Yes.
Whatever you put in the budget for the payback is what gets transferred out?
Correct. I'm trying to find, actually, if you found the account detail for the golf course fund,
Right.
you can see the transfers out. That includes the budget of 71,209. 35,000 of that is for the actual payment that we'll make to the. 35,000 is the payment that we'll make to general fund on that loan, and the balance of it is payment on the building fund loan.
Okay. Thank you.
Amber?
Looks like we're on track, and I don't have any questions or comments. Thank you.
Eric?
Yeah, Ken, on expenditures, didn't we used to have a page that showed a listing of expenditures for the quarter?
I'm sorry, we do show some reporting.
I see under adjustments.
Oh, okay.
But it seems to be not, well, I thought we had more itemized listing in the past. And I can understand rolling things up, but here, I can't get an idea of the types of expenditures and all.
Well, that is correct. On the budget report, I do summarize and just show the amounts from each, like general fund reserves or the other fund reserves. I don't show
Yeah, I think in the past,
all the
didn't we have,
individual accounts that's debiting, no.
in the past, we used to have a listing. And there we could see any like major items that might have been larger than what had been previously budgeted and requiring adjustments and so forth. I look through here, I don't see anything like that, and it's difficult to tell when it's summarized to this point, the detail I'd like to see.
So you would like to add detail like which departments are being increased, or each individual line item in that department?
Not so much for salaries or anything, but for like general expenditures. Like yours, okay, a listing of what you've done through your accounts payable through the quarter.
I'm listening to my accounts payable.
You're wanting to see an income statement.
Well, in the past, we've had a sheet that would show the items rather than the total sum or the total dollars.
Like specific accounts, like whether it would be salaries or operating supplies or?
Well, that you've got listed on other pages here, but things like the purchases of vehicles and so forth. Before, I'm pretty sure we had a listing, it would show it. And if you looked on there, you'd say, oh, you purchased 4 vehicles instead of 5, or 5 instead of 4s. And here...
Well, that would still show up in the capital improvement budget.
Most of those show up in the capital
improvement program. You would still see that in the detail of that. I mean, you might not see...
Well, I'm not talking just strictly
3
capital.
Chevrolets and a Ford bought, but you're going to see a total number of money spent.
And the operating also is what I'm interested in. Because here, on this one page, you know, I see the adjustments, but, okay, they were adjusted. What were the items that brought on the adjustments, you know?
Maybe we can get together after, talk in more detail about it. I'm still not following.
Okay, next time I'll bring a previous one of yours and show you what we've had in the past. It made it a little bit easier to follow along as to the reason behind the adjustments on your page, when you can compare that.
Okay, I'd be glad to work on that.
Why would you want to see all that detail when you got it over there on the summary? You can see what it is per line items in the budget. Are you asking to see individual items that make up a $20,000 line item?
For the quarter, yes, and that wouldn't be that hard to do, and it has been done in the past.
It's a lot of detail.
Well, I think in the past, we did get too much detail, and we asked for it to be summarized at some point, but I'd still like to see a little more detail.
If you have a chance to send me what
Okay.
you're referring to in the past, then we can work off that.
Sounds like he's wanting to see like an income statement, you know, to see what each individual expenditure was.
Well, even there, our income statements would be summarized, so.
I prefer to see the summary. I mean, I personally don't need to see that detail. That's your and Paul's job. That's, ours is overseeing the total numbers.
That's true, but looking at some of the detail helps you understand why there are adjustments.
Yeah.
Rather than to sit here and say,
Well,
okay,
and
this is an adjustment, you know.
Please feel free to ask any questions about any adjustment he made, and he'll tell you what it was.
And that's why in the past, I could scan the one sheet and look for anything that might look a little different than what the board had approved or recommended in the past, and therefore could ask a question for clarification. And when I first sat on the board, we had too much information. And we did ask for it to be summarized to some extent, but not in total. Because here I can tell nothing other than that there was an adjustment made. Why was an adjustment made? And with the listing, you could look down there and say, oh, yeah, okay, I can see here why. I don't need to ask. Or if it's, say, an item that, well, I won't get into detail. I'll get with you later on.
Okay, that's fine.
And that's all I had.
Okay. I thought it was a very good first quarter. In my opinion, it's great. It's just like the annual last year. It was better than expected. I think it's very good. It does well for the state of Florida because our economy seems to be moving along okay, and we don't seem to be hurting any. And I'm very pleased with it, Ken. I think it's a great report.
Thank you.
Next scheduled meeting date is Monday, May the 15th. We're still on for that?
Yes.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda that I see is adjournment. This
Can I
meeting
make
is.
one more comment before we go?
You just had your turn.
May I have one more turn?
Yes. Go ahead, Harry.
Okay, lost my train of thought here. The budget seems to be running a little bit behind 25%, which is a good sign. And I was wondering, is that attributable to the way that the calendar had fallen during the first quarter? Or is this a sign that things are even better than we'd hoped?
Well, one cause for it, if we do have like some of the capital items, or we've got some kind of expenditure, like the clerk's office, for instance, if you got things that are like one-time events, maybe in the first quarter, maybe not appearing to the last quarter, but still those can affect the percentage of budget numbers.
I'm looking at the detail by departments and all, and they all seem to be under 25%, which is a good sign. And I was wondering, is that the trend, or is that just because of this first quarter? It's just the way that the calendar fell.
Some of it may
as
do
payroll.
with like our salary salary accounts.
Right.
Where a payday falls, you know, it doesn't, the last payday isn't for just the days of that fiscal year necessarily. We might accrue some of the first payday of
Right.
this fiscal year
That's what I'm asking,
to
that
the prior
and
year. There
your-
could be some of that difference.
And your accounts payable may have fallen on such dates that there were fewer payments, or in which case would make us look better, or is it a good trend where everything was in line?
Right. I mean, we budget for the calendar year, you know, exactly the 365 days that we're going to pay for.
Right.
But
But this looks like a pretty good sign, and a trend, and I just want to point that out, that it, hopefully it wasn't a calendar, but this is a good trend.
I could add,
That it?
That's
if you
it.
looked on the revenue side too, there's some of the intergovernmental revenues and utility taxes, franchise fees. There's sometimes, like, I'm sure in this quarter, there's probably only 2 months shown of those receipts, just because of the lag in payment, because there again, we charge what we receive in October's check was really collections in September of the previous
Right.
year, so.
You're gonna have the
Those are-
accruals that you put in for
That's how it's gonna
September
affect
that
it,
you gotta reverse out when you get into October and the new year, so that makes your revenue less.
So it'll
when
catch
you
up.
Debit those revenues
By the end
and
of
take
the
them
year,
out.
we'd have 12 payments.
Absolutely. But the same on the end of the year in the fourth quarter, you've got accruals where you reach out there and grab 60 days worth of it, bring it
True.
back in.
Very true.
It's that way every year. That it? You
Yep.
good?
Hey, Larry, I had one more question I missed when I
Shoot.
asked the other one. Under the golf course fund for capital outlay, the first quarter actual jumped out at $21,097 against a budget of $6,500. That's like 325%. Was there one item that caused that in the last quarter? $20,000?
Which item was that in, Terrence?
Capital outlay, golf course fund, and the fund summaries.
Oh, it's not the golf carts purchased, I can tell you
No,
that.
no, it's not that. And it's not the nets, because they haven't put them up yet.
Are you on one of the
I'm on your detail, your fund summaries.
fund summary? Okay.
That's where it showed up.
And you're looking at the capital items.
Right, they spent $22,000. That's a big number, relatively.
There was I think I referred to it, yes. On the summary of the golf course?
Yeah,
I actually put a note there that they had lightning damage and that the insurance
we'll pay.
will hopefully come in to cover that. But for that reason, we did not yet adjust the expense side to provide a budget for that insurance payment.
But,
So once we do that, it'll all square away.
okay. That's the kind of thing Mr. Hall was looking for. Thanks.
Good? Okay, there being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, gentlemen.